Hello and welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how you can build a targeted resume. And the guest lecturer for this week is Sharron Vogler. Sharron is the Associate Director at Wake Forest University, and she has over 10 years of experience helping coach students to get their first job. So she's going to be talking about building a targeted resume and also this concept called applicant tracking systems. And this is a key part for you getting your resume past the AI and in front of a pair of human eyes when you're applying for a job. Then we're going to hop into the interactive portion where this week we actually have two demonstrations. So we have Christina and we have Zane. So Christina just applied for Wake Forest Masters of Analytics program and she actually got in. And the initial plan for this week was to have Sharron review Christina's resume to see how she could increase her chances of getting accepted. But unfortunately, the timing was off, and Christina needed to apply well before this episode came out. But I sent Sharron Christina's resume anyways, and Sharron was just blown away at the quality of Christina's resume. She said it was a slam dunk for the program. So in this specific demonstration, Sharron's going to break down why Christina's resume was so amazing. Then we're going to focus on Zane Smith, who he's actually applying for his first job out of getting his undergraduate from Greensboro College. And here, Sharron runs Zane's resume through a site called JobScan, which matches your resume with your ideal job posting and sees how well you're a match. Then stick around to the end of the episode because we have quite a few questions from my cohort and also quite a few LinkedIn submitted questions. One last note, Sharron is open to career coaching on the side. So if you have any questions or you want some expert advice on how to improve your resume, reach out to her on LinkedIn. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Hello and welcome back. So Sharron, thank you for coming on for the second time to the podcast. And this time you get to talk to my entire cohort at Greensboro College. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing really fantastic. Thanks for inviting me back.
Awesome. So we have briefly mentioned, is it ATS?
ATS, yes.
Applicant tracking systems. And that's something that you know a whole lot about. So what we're going to be talking about in this podcast episode is all about resume. So how you can create a very targeted resume, and then also what is the software you're going to be using? It's something Scan?
JobScan.
Okay. So we're going to be getting into how to actually use JobScan to match your specific resume with the job posting that you're going after. And Zane Smith is actually going to be the example for this. So he's gone ahead and sent me his resume, which I forwarded to you, and then also I think 2 or 3 job postings, so we can see kind of how well of a match he is going to be for that. So let's kick things off with, what is ATS?
Awesome. Well, I'm going to share my screen real quickly. So an applicant tracking system is there's software platforms that most companies are using. And so even from small startups all the way to Fortune, 20, 200 and plus firms are using these, because frontline recruiters for these firms, their main job is to see who is not qualified for a specific job that the company is recruiting for. So this platform involves a lot of artificial intelligence, and depending on the types of keywords these recruiters use to set up these filters, will tell a recruiter how qualified or not qualified an applicant is for that particular job, right? Mm-hmm. And so an average job posting these days has well over, I think the last thing I read was 800 applications for one job opening, and that's on the lower level. And so they're using technology to weed out candidates that are not qualified. And so again, it's there are a lot of different types of applicant tracking systems. And if any of you have ever gone out and started to apply for jobs, you may have seen some of these icons or some of these systems as you have to log in, right, to a careers page, create a login and a password, where you're actually creating logins and passwords to these applicant tracking systems. And so again, some of my research has shown that only like 95% of resumes aren't even looked at by human eyes on the first go
Wow.
at this. A computer is going to look at it first and determine, it's going to give them a net promoter score, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my work in trying to research these applicant tracking systems really stemmed for my own search that I was doing for some career coaches at Wake Forest. We use Workday as our applicant tracking system. And I literally would get a report every day of all the applicants who had applied. And Workday actually would give me a percentage, and that percentage represented how qualified certain candidate, the actual candidate was for the job that I had posted and was recruiting for. And so, of course, I'm going to start at the top, right? I want to see the top percentage of applicants for my job. I don't want to, look at the lower end of it. And so again, I've started to do this work and this research on how do we get through these applicant tracking systems. I hear from students and clients that they are not getting any interviews. I've applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and I'm getting no interviews. And my first question is always, are you targeting your resume for those jobs? And it seems real simple to me because I live and breathe this every day. It's my life's work, right? But for most applicants that are out there, they've never even heard of applicant tracking systems. And we have this ta-da moment together that says, oh, now I get it. And so, again, just through poking around on the internet, came across this system called JobScan, which we'll talk about in a minute. JobScan allows you to put in your resume, just copy and paste it. And then you copy and paste a job description. And JobScan uses AI and gives you that net promoter score. It says you're 20% qualified for this job, and you want to be in the 80s. You want to be in the high 70s, 80s qualified for the job before you'll go on to the next round. So how do we trick the applicant tracking system? And that is by embedding keywords in your resume and in your cover letter that speak directly to not just your technical skills, but your soft skills as well.
It's interesting. I didn't realize that I had come in contact with some ATS. I guess it wouldn't be ATS systems. It's an ATS. It's like an ATM machine. It's like you don't say it redundantly. But so I don't think it's been a while since we've chatted. But so Elizabeth Illig was my original co-host. Then she pulled out, I think she wants to focus on her writing. And the new co-host is Dr. Hall, who I interviewed last summer. And then 3 days later, he actually reached out to me and said, hey, we've got an adjunct position opened up, and I had to apply through Workday.
Okay, so you went through an applicant tracking. Now, there are ways that we can pull candidates through these applicant tracking systems, and so they can get flagged. I can call up my HR and say, please pull, I want to see this candidate. Because of most of those happen because of referrals. And so that's a whole nother podcast around networking and how effective networking can be in any job search. And so most companies are using them. It's really stemmed from EEOC compliance because firms have to report, how many candidates they have, how many underrepresented candidates they have, how many female, how many male, how many, how many disabled, it's, all encompassing. So these applicant tracking systems were really designed to help firms keep up with those kind of things that they're required to report.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about it from their perspective in that it's a data collection process.
Yes, it sure is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I do remember that Daniel Hall was like, look, I want you for this position, but then they had to open it up for, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks, for other people to apply to it. So yeah, if you can build really strong relationships, you can kind of bypass this whole resume
You just skip
fiasco.
right to the front of, yeah, you skip right to the front of the class. And that actually happened in that scenario that I was just talking about. When I hired a career coach, I searched for 6 months and I couldn't find, my ideal candidate. And a colleague had worked with someone who had recently lost their job because of some grant money that had gone away. And they worked on the same committee in, like a professional development or professional affiliation with colleges and employers and career services. And this colleague picked up the phone and said, would you even consider her? And she just kind of pitched her to me. And I said, she sounds fantastic. I'd love to talk to her. And so she didn't even, she had to apply through all the normal means, but I ended up hiring her.
Oh, awesome. Also, can you full screen this? Because we're still
Yeah.
seeing like the side slides.
Can I? I don't know.
Up at the top left.
Did I do it? No.
Oh, interesting.
Top left.
Is it that it's got a play button on top of? I guess we can look at it like this because it's what it's doing is showing your view as if you were presenting to someone else. So I guess this is probably this is fine.
Okay. Right. This isn't my sandbox, John David, right?
I'm out of my depth too, because this is like a whole new setup for me to where I'm used to just doing one-on-one podcast episodes. So having to coordinate this whole interaction is
we're all learning together. We're all learning together. So applicant tracking systems, it's really important that, these are just some keywords that I see over and over again on jobs that my clients and the students I work with are constantly applying for. And so if you can do it the old fashioned way, which is, before I knew of JobScan, this is how I did it, right? I just went through the job description and highlighted any type of trends, any word I saw repeated multiple times, and then just kind of made a list over here. And then I have to make sure that those words are actually on the resume, right? If you have, if on the job description, I use this example all the time because I get this question a lot. Do we need to put Microsoft Office Suite stuff on there? Because everybody knows the Microsoft Office Suite these days, right? Word, Excel, PowerPoint. If you don't know those three things coming out of undergrad, like you're not paying attention. Somewhere something got lost, right? But if a job description says you need to be proficient in Excel, and the words proficient in Excel are not on your resume, it's a kick out. It is a kick out.
Oh, that's really interesting. Because I think I've given some bad advice in the past. Because I think I've told someone like, well, I think they said proficient in Word. Which
right.
if
Whatever
you're doing,
it is. Yeah.
If you're doing an analytics job, I don't think they're gonna ask for that.
Right. And so if it's just like insert the technology. And the soft skills, somebody mentioned soft skills earlier, they're just as important as the hard skills, the technical skills. And so you see things over and over, like excellent communication skills, those verbally, right, written and verbal. And it's repeated over and over again in the job description. If those words are not on your resume, your net promoter score isn't going to be as high as it needs to be. And so I've got some more kind of tips to think about when trying to trick the ATS, and that is to really think: Am I qualified for this job? Right? If you are applying for jobs and it says 8+ years of experience and you have none, right? If you have to have advanced coding skills in Python and you don't, right? Then, or if you're applying for data scientist jobs and you have very little coding in your background, you're not qualified for those jobs. And so, so make sure you follow the 80-20 rule. I always say, are you 80% qualified for the job? And if the answer is yes, then go ahead and apply. The only caveat I'd make on that is the years of experience, right?
I was going to ask you about that, actually.
That's definitely something you have to pay attention to. So I coach my cohorts on zero, and this is pre-experience. You're coming right out of undergrad or coming right out of a 1-year graduate school straight from undergrad. And if it's a 0 to 3 years of experience, you should apply. And use that 3-year rule as a sliding scale. So if you've worked for a year and you did some data analysis, right, in a job that you did there, even if it was baseline Excel work, where you just kind of cleaned up a bunch of Excel spreadsheets, right? But you did that for a year, and the job description says 1 to 4 years of experience, I would apply.
Okay, so Elizabeth, in one of our early podcast episodes, disagrees with you.
Oh,
so
good.
This isn't me. This is what
Right.
Elizabeth said. She said that a lot of times companies will say 3 to 5 years for entry level, and you should go ahead and apply for it anyways.
3, but it's got a 3 on it, right? So it's got a 3-year.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
3-year on it. Yeah. So 0 to 3 years, sliding scale, right? So it says 3 to 5 years. Then, you have to sometimes read into the job description a little bit more. But John David, to be honest, I've had hiring managers come to me with job descriptions, and they know that I work with entry-level talent, and it says 8+ years of experience. And I challenge them. I'm like, nobody's going to apply for this job because it says 8+ years of experience. And they're like, oh yeah, I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
right?
I think what Elizabeth said was a lot of times HR will just stamp that number of years arbitrarily. Yeah. So don't take that as gospel. If you think that, if it isn't saying you need 10+ years of Python experience, but if it's something reasonable that you think you could, it may be a little bit outside of your comfort zone because
right.
It's a job that's you're going to have to learn and upskill, but if it's within kind of a reasonable range, go ahead and apply for it anyways.
And also you have to think, there are probably going to be people who do hit that years of experience mark that you're in competition with, right? So that could be a diagnosis of why you aren't getting called for jobs, but I wouldn't let it stop you from applying for a job.
Right. And those people may be asking for too much money too. So, this is a very dynamic situation.
And job descriptions are written for the perfect candidate. Perfect. And it's usually the person who just left the job for whatever reason.
Oh,
and so it's not gospel, right? It's not gospel. But a lot of times applicants look at it as black and white. I'm not qualified for this job. I'm not going to apply. Well, if you're 80% qualified for the job, then I would apply.
Awesome.
All right.
So, yeah, it looks like you covered be selective about the jobs you apply for at one company. Okay, so that's a situation where there's multiple jobs that they're posting?
Yeah, so if you've looked at any really large companies and they have like 3 or 4 different jobs that you're really interested in, then a spray and pray model rarely works. But again, it could be like one company's strategy and about applicants applying for multiple jobs within their organization. It could be a turnoff. So you just have to be selective. Be selective. Use relevant keywords. I cannot stress this enough. We're going to talk about that when we see the demo. And then avoid acronyms, right? On your resume, you've got to get those spelled out. It's really important. And then I would really think of tailoring every resume for each job that you apply to. Just start with a baseline document. You want to just save that document as, Sharron Vogler, Director, Career Services, Greensboro College, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that naming convention is what's going to come across when they see your file in the applicant tracking system. And then it allows you to remember what resume you used when you applied for the job. And so it's each one of them. It's not this massive undertaking and massive reworking of your resume. They're just slight tweaks that you want to just embed those keywords and make sure they're on there so that you can be as competitive as possible. And so I've got some additional, I'll send these, John David, to you after we're done. We're going to talk about JobScan here in a minute, but just Google this stuff, guys. There's so much great information. And most of the stuff that when I Googled it, the things that I pulled up, they were all really relevant and really helpful, and me learning, just helping, me understand how this stuff works. And so they're definitely going to be helpful for you as you get through this season of life, because it's, it was very stressful trying to get into college, and it's just as stressful to get out of college, right, and get a job. And so use these free tools as much as you possibly can.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and also too, you throw in the fact that we are in some unprecedented times.
Very.
It's definitely hard to be entering the job force right now. But that being said, I feel like analytics as a skill set is one of the few areas that is pretty stable, and I think is going to continue to grow.
Yeah, it's growing. Jeff Cam, who runs the Master of Science in Business Analytics program at Wake Forest, you need to follow him on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I make it my life's work to repost and reshare jobs that I think that my following would be interested in. And day after day, I'm just really encouraged to see so many jobs, especially in the data analytics space. And so good choice of minors for you kids. Yeah. It's going to be competitive. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it and say the first job that you're going to apply to, you're going to get. But you need to use all of these tools so that you can at least, get yourself in a position where you can interview, so you can really, at that point, you can really start to tell your story.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for putting together that presentation. I feel like that really laid out kind of your thoughts and the details, because this stuff is pretty complex. So now let's move on to kind of the interactive portion of the episode we're going to have Christina and then Zane. So Christina, actually, congratulations. How long ago? Was it 3 days ago or 2 days ago? You actually just got accepted to the Wake Forest Masters in Analytics program.
Yeah, it was a couple of days ago. I don't remember what day it was exactly, but yeah, it was about a week and a half after I had my interview.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We're excited to have you at Wake Forest. I will be your career coach when you're in the program. And so I'm excited to get to know you better and help you achieve some of these goals that you have for yourself. And so Christina, you're perfectly okay with me sharing your resume and kind of walking everybody. It didn't take me but 30 seconds, John David, to determine that she was a slam dunk candidate for us.
Right. So I think we're going to have to pivot the way that this podcast is going to be structured, because my initial plan was, hey, Christina is applying to this program. I can bring on someone from that program to talk to her. So instead of saying, all right, how can we help Christina? What we're going to do is now kind of position it as, let's review Christina as a brand and her specific resume and talk about why she's such, I think you specifically said she's a slam dunk for the program.
Slam dunk. Yeah.
All right.
And so before we get into that, John David asked me to talk about ways that you can stand out as a grad school candidate. We're going to look at Christina's resume in just a second, but I'll just give you a little bit of insider scoop. It is all about the data. The numbers will tell you everything that you need to know to almost have a crystal ball effect on whether you can get into a program or not. So you all did this in undergrad. You all, went out there and saw all of your options, right? There's so many options for undergrad, just as many options for grad school, even in this MSBA specialized math, we call them specialized master's programs. Schools are starting them, they're sprouting out every day. Like every day we hear about a new peer school competing in this space for us. And I'll tell you that these are the numbers. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen again. I already have it pulled up. Hopefully I do. Here I go. Don't save that. I don't want to go into that. Hold on. We want to go here. Okay. And so when you're on the school website, and I'm just pulled up Wake Forest School of Business, Master of Science in Business Analytics program. So we have two programs. We have an on-campus program, which is 10 months. You see there, very rigorous. I think it's 36 credit hours in 10 months. It's crazy. And this is the class profile that is currently seated. So they're doing the program right now. You need to pay attention to the average GPA and these average test scores. Okay, and grad schools are getting real creative, and some of them are they're waiving test scores. So that's a good thing. But if you're looking at a school that's waiving test scores, your GPA really needs to tell a very compelling story in your transcript. Okay, if you hit this average GPA and you hit or above or exceed these average test scores, the likelihood of you getting into the program is very high. Okay, if you're below those averages, you're gonna have to work a little harder. And it's not that it's out of reach. It's just it's going to be a little bit harder for you, to get a seat right in that whatever class they're sitting for next. And so they don't use applicant tracking systems. Yay. At Wake Forest. And anyway, they don't use it at Wake Forest. And so, John David, do you want me to pull up Christina's?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Right now? Okay. All right. So thank you, Christina, for allowing us to use your resume. And so can everybody see it? Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. And so our program at Wake Forest is a pre-experienced program. That means we don't want to have a whole lot of years of experience. We don't want someone like me, right? I'm 52 years old and I've got 30 years of experience. They're not even going to let me apply, right? I'm going to get kicked out in our, application system very early saying this is not the program for you. Thanks, but will you refer us to your daughter? Right. and so they're paying attention to this date here, right? Is this someone who's in school senior year, or is this someone, I've seen 5 years out, but usually our sweet spot is around 0, like right out of undergrad to 2 or 3 years out. And so, again, I didn't really have to look any further than right here. She has a Bachelor of Science in Math, okay, and a minor in Business Analytics and Humanities. Tells me a whole lot about Christina and whether she has the kind of the flex to do the math. Is she able to do the quantitative work and the mathematical and statistical modeling work that is required of our students? And then this one right here, right? GPA 3.94. Yowzer.
Wow, that's way higher than your average.
Way higher. That's why I said slam dunk. And so I read through, right, some of her very high level. I didn't read every word, but I just high level went through this. And I'm like, oh, wow, this girl's pretty active. And look at this leadership stuff. Okay, not only is she qualified from an academic level, but this is someone that we want to represent our brand. Because at Wake Forest, we want leaders. We want people who are very collaborative. We want people that are going to be, that are going to add to the overall experience of all of the students at Wake Forest and elevate our brand. And these are things that we think represent that. This is a person who is involved, right? And they haven't sucked the life out of us, right? They're not someone who uses up resources, but adds to the resources. And then she's got some technical proficiencies down here. Just the fact that she knows Tableau tells me a whole lot about her. And so,
wait, can we pause there? What does it tell you that she knows?
It tells me, right, that she's not, that using this kind of technology is not foreign to her. Because if you look at someone, and we take all majors, you don't have to be a math major. You can be a humanities major, right? But if you know Tableau and you know how to code, you might have had a minor or even took a class, right, in computer science, and you know Java, that tells me this is a technically proficient person.
Right, because I love hearing you say that, because essentially the 2 classes I'm teaching at Greensboro College, we spend 4 months learning the basics of analytics and then applied Tableau case studies in the case studies and business analytics class. And then what we're doing in this capstone is that they're taking that knowledge and then using it to help my clients build out even more infrastructure.
Yeah, good stuff. And so, and again, back to that point, if you don't have these, it's okay. I mean, you'll still be a competitive candidate, but I'm saying that her resumes, would rise to the top as someone that we really want to be a part of our program.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good job. Really fantastic job.
So
laid out well. It's, just from an aesthetic perspective, her resume is clean. She's utilized her white space really well. It's all on one page, just A+ work there.
Do you have any ways that you could make it even better, or is this pretty much one of the best that you've seen?
Yeah, one of the best I've seen, actually. I would, and John David and I talked about this a little before we got started here, is if you have a GRE or a GMAT score, then you need to get it on here. But again, tailor this resume. If you're applying for a school and their average GRE is, sometimes I can't even remember. If the average GRE is 315 and you have a 300, I wouldn't put it on your resume when you're applying at Wake Forest, right? But if your GRE is a 325 and the average at Wake Forest is 315, you get that thing on there. I mean, you have to enter that on the application, but again, if I just were to hand a recruiter her resume, they would immediately look at it and say, please have her apply.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, so do you want to move on to Zane's resume and then also the applicant tracking system?
Where is Zane? Okay, I had Zane all pulled up. Here I go. I'm going to stop my share for a minute and find it.
But yeah, this has been awesome. I mean, I'm glad that we got to highlight a success case as far as what it takes to get into a very high level master's of analytics program, because I think that this is going to help the audience kind of see something concrete of what they should shoot for and what they should try to achieve.
All right, Zane, you ready? Here we go. All right, so do you want me to jump right into job scan, John David?
Maybe.
Or just talk about Zane's resume first.
So I think there needs to be some critique done here.
All right.
Because you said that it needs a little work, kind of in our pre-episode chat.
Okay. All right. All right. So here is Zane's resume. And it's pretty good. I don't want you to think that it's not good at all. It's pretty good. First things first, it's on 2 pages.
Okay.
Okay. So we'd want to get this thing on 1 page, and just by using, this stuff is really easy for me. And now that I'm on screen, it's hard, right? Just by looking at these margins, right? He's got the left and the right margins at 1%. Everything should be at a 0.5. Be consistent across the board. That's just me. That's just how I do it, right? So he already stretched it out. And then look, he's got extra, backspace. Look, we're already getting this stuff up. Like, look how easy that was. Like, y'all aren't even paying me to do this. Right? I put like, so where can we get lines back?
Maybe make his name a little bit smaller.
Well, I like a lodge name.
Okay.
Right? So we can put this stuff up here, and I can tell you why that's important. In a minute. Okay. Control V. Whoop. Shoot.
Yeah, I think we just made it 3 pages.
Yeah. You want to paste? Oh no. See, when I'm on the.
Yes, it's harder when you have an audience.
It is. It's terribly hard. Hold on. I can do this. I do this in my sleep.
Yeah, I can't type when people are watching me.
Okay. Right. So there's a spot back. Right. Where can we get more spots back? So many. I'd push this out. You want to highlight this so we can push that out over here. And then we could come in. I mean, there's so many ways to do this. GPA. What was it, Zane? Oh, 3.92. Let's pretend that's what it was.
Perfect.
Okay, that's good. It's good. Good work, Zane. All right. So look, we've already gotten some lines back here, and we've still got some work to do. But those are just ways. I would even say this probably wasn't important.
Right. So that was the college he went to before he went to Greensboro College.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can remove that space. Oh, it's like what, 1 line left?
We're getting there. We got 2 left. We can do it like easy. All right. So one other trick in Word is when you come in, anytime you cut and paste into Word, it throws off the formatting and the spacing. And you do this little tighten. Look at that. It's
there we
on
go.
1 page.
It's already looking way more polished.
And that's like 2 minutes worth of work to it, but I could do this all day, right? In my sleep. And so one of the things that I noticed when I looked at Zane's resume and looked at the jobs that he was going to be, that he's interested in applying to, is that he doesn't have a whole lot of analytics experience on here. Okay, he's got good experience, right? We're keeping ourselves busy. Some of this stuff tells me, right, that that he's a busy guy. He's got a strong work ethic, especially when you get down here. Anybody who can go to school and be a full-time athlete, they get extra points, right, for work ethic, because it's hard. It's hard enough just to take a full class load, but when you add on jobs and you add on athletics on top of that, or any of this leadership stuff that you all have done so much work for, it makes a difference.
So Zane, I'm disappointed. Where is the student practicum? Maybe this is a good question to ask Sharron. So what we did last semester is they actually came in and studied my YouTube data to build out a buyer persona, and then I put a budget behind 2 marketing campaigns, and then we quantified the results. Is that student work? Is that like a student project, or is that work in your eyes?
Great question. And there are a couple of different options. If you don't have a whole lot of experience, I would put it under work. At least the practicum, this capstone, like real live data, working with a real client, you can make that, you easily can make that look like a job. I've also started to add in sections on resumes that say relevant analytic projects, just like work experience. So you come in and make just a section to talk about your projects and not a homework assignment that you did last night, right? Think more in terms of like a semester long, or, something a little bit more significant than just a homework assignment.
Yeah. So like if you were to create a portfolio over a 4-month period, that might be a good link to put in there. Zane, I'm calling you out.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. And so if it's a project, right, if your project involves gathering data, and managing it in SQL, cleaning it up in R, using R, and presenting recommendations in Tableau, like that's experience. That's more experience than I have, right? And so you want to get it on here. It needs to shine on here actually. So my recommendation, like I haven't put this through the system yet, but I think that you're probably going to come up pretty low in being qualified for that first job that you sent over to me.
Well, I'm wondering if we could copy and paste what Christina put for her student practicum in the work experience. Maybe, well, I guess we can't run it twice because you're using the trial account, but it would be interesting seeing a juxtaposition of without the student practicum versus with the student practicum.
And she has hers on here.
Right. So you can see the YouTube data-driven marketing campaign.
Right here.
Right. So if we can figure out.
I don't know if that's going to make a big enough difference. Maybe. Depends on the job and the actual words that are on the job description.
Well, so this is something that I've tried to kind of piece together. Should we call it an apprenticeship, an internship, a student project?
I call it I actually use the word data analyst. You can use the word consultant. Sometimes I've used graduate school consultant as the title of the work.
That seems like it's a little bit in a gray area, but because what you're doing is you're gaming the ATS and a person's going to read it and understand the context of it, right? Right. So yeah, maybe we could kind of finagle the resume a little bit to include
this. Yeah. Like pretend Zane has this experience.
No. He worked on that project.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. Let's come in and so that's something we worked on as a group.
All right. Let's put it right here. Let's just see what this looks like. We're going to go on 2 pages, but work with me here, people. Okay. This is copy. Okay. And you would underline it. I mean, it would match. We're not going to match it. Right. You know where I'm getting with it.
The ATS doesn't account for formatting, does it?
No.
Right. So we can just kind of send it because, of course you would want to polish it up. But just for this example, let's see kind of if that bumps the score up.
All right. Now let's go here. We're going to go here. So it's jobscan.com.
Okay.
How easy is that? All right. And you get 5 free, right? So they may change it. It's just like LinkedIn. They try to commoditize things all the time. But you should get 5 free demos per month. And that's on a calendar month. It's not a rolling 30 days. So every calendar month you get 5. You can pay, an upcharge. I think the lowest one I saw was $89 a year for unlimited. And of course the packages go up from there. But you should be able to get what you need by just using the sample. And so you go here. I just said try sample resume and job, right? So you can upload it. So I gotta save it. Hold on. Zane is in Word. Zane file, save as to my desktop. I'm just gonna save it. Save. Okay. And now I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to upload it. Okay. And now it wants the job description. This is the one I'm going to use, this public consulting group. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to apply for this job. And you want to copy it. And I try to leave out some of the like EEOC words, like some of the stuff that doesn't really matter. And you get to control that. So you just copy it and you paste it in here and it'll scan it. Here we go. 20%.
Oh no.
21. We got one more. We got one more percentage point. So as your career coach, I'd be like, Zane, we got to work on this, because what you'll find when you come down here, this system is so great. It tells you, it gives you kind of like the cheat notes, right? And so it's so fascinating. It says, it's just giving you some specific information. Missing skills, job title match. So down here, word count. There are 380 words in your resume. So check, that was good. 1,000 words, right, is what they recommend. So it tells you what you've got good. Page heights, hard skills, consulting, proposal, training. Education was on there. Mm-hmm. Education was listed twice. You had it on your resume once. Client presentations wasn't on your resume. It's predicted skill, right? So you see presentation, sales, focus, writing, research. None of those words were on your resume. Soft skills, only communication skills. Mm-hmm. That was a good one. If you're going to use one, that was a good one. But don't you think you have all these, don't you? Mm-hmm. I bet you do. I bet you do. And so we need to get them on there. And so it gives you some more keywords to think about. Like business, you have it mentioned 4 times on your resume. The job description has it listed 6 times. This is the cliff notes, the cheat sheet. This is magic.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Zane's defense, we didn't tailor this to any one of these specific, but this is, Zane, you've got some homework now. Now, if you want to apply for that specific job, go through and implement all of this advice that it's giving you here.
It's so fantastic. I did it. I did my own resume, and it was fascinating because I would look. I'm a senior associate director, which means, not entry level, mm-hmm. almost to middle management. But my next move, I want to be a director. So I chose a director position with Georgetown University. And Zane, if it makes you feel any better, I was only 20% qualified as well.
Oh, wow. So this is a very harsh grading scale. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So it's not like
you want to get up in the 80s, below, 70s, 80s.
Okay.
70s, 80s. And I wish we had time to do that work together, mm-hmm. and then put it back through it and watch that number go up. It's so fun. Like my nerdy career services heart just starts to go pitter pat when I see this kind of stuff.
Well, Zane, if you want to get together, we can actually work on this, and we could even potentially record your progress on it if you're interested.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I got some stuff to work on.
Well, that was I feel like this new format is awesome because I love that, Sharron, you and I got to talk, then we got to actually do some work together that I think has some concrete and tangible insights that we can give to the students and the listeners. So now let's jump over to the Q&A. So we've actually got 30 minutes before class ends. So I have 3 questions from the students in my class. So I guess let's start with you again, Zane. What was your question? I think we left a note in the chat log.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sort of applies a little bit to me personally, because I'm kind of debating whether I want to go to grad school next year or want to jump in straight and get try to get a job. So what's the pros and cons of going directly to grad school, say next year, or trying to get a job and then going in a few years?
Well, let's talk about the con. Let's talk about the con first.
Okay.
The con is that you're going to give up a year of revenue, right? Of working. So let's say you can get a job making $45,000 a year. and you work that job for 1 year. So not only did you save the cost of going to grad school, but you also made $45,000, right? So that's the con, right? Just money, right? And the opportunity cost that it takes for giving up another year of your life before you start earning income. Okay. To me, I think the pros outweigh the cons. And I work for higher ed, right? This is not a paid endorsement by Wake Forest. Trust me, I'm a student of higher ed. I'm an employee of higher ed. I believe in education. And so if you went to grad school and you spent, let's just say $50,000, right? And it can go, right? We can go down to 20 if we need to, and you can spend, 6 figures on grad school if you want to. Some programs are 1 year, some are 2. Like, you really have to start looking at that cost, right? But if you can invest $50,000 and go to grad school, you're going to position yourself to make around $70,000 your first year out. So, I'm becoming this data person. And then I'm like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense, right? So your return on investment far outweighs, right? The actual physical dollars that it's going to take in the years of working, that you're not going to have. And so if you pick the right grad school, back to the pro, if you pick the right grad school, you're going to continue to develop both hard skills and soft skills, because at a good grad school, they're going to spend just as much time talking about teamwork as they do about coding. And if they're spending more time talking about coding than they're doing, and they're not spending any time on the softer skills, or what I call power skills, they're probably pushing you into a more data science program, a more, like scientific type of end of the spectrum. And so any good grad school, you're going to continue this learning. And then back to what we were talking about earlier, you're going to gain experience. You're going to have at least 4 projects and 1 practicum type of capstone, just like you're working with John David, right? To put on your resume, that's going to help you not just be competitive in the applicant tracking system, right? But you're going to be able to talk about these experiences in interviews, right? Then that's what's going to get you the job. Your resume is not going to get you a job. It's just not. It's a ticket to the dance, right? Once you get inside the dance, then you got to show them your moves before you get best dancer, right? And so, and building these experiences is just going to make you that much more competitive. So coming out of a pre-experienced master's program, the average starting salary is $70,000 a year. Coming out of undergrad, these are averages. It's about 45 or 50.
Interesting.
So those are my pros and cons.
So the one thing that I worry about from a risk mitigation standpoint is that, Zane, you have built some analytic skills over the past, 6 months or so. You may want to work for a year in the analytics space to see if that's something you actually want to do long term. So the only thing I worry about is getting a specialty and a degree, then you get out into the field and then you don't like the work. So that's a little bit of the caution that I would put out there, because I think that there is a new quarter life crisis phenomenon that goes on. At least I went through it, where I had these expectations for how the world works. Then I got out into the workforce and it just crushed me. Then I built myself back up kind of with more of a realistic mind frame. And I killed it in grad school. I was like, it's funny how much higher all of my students' GPAs are than mine when I was an undergrad.
I had to turn in my transcript for a certification, and my daughter saw it and she's like, Mom, how did you graduate? I graduated from Apps today with a 2.3.
No way.
And I said, I graduated. What do you call like a med school student, right? Who graduates the bottom of the class? You call them doctor.
A doctor.
You call them doctor, right?
C's get degrees, apparently.
Right? And so look what, just to John David's point, I've built myself the school of hard knocks into a position where I'm teaching a graduate level class at one of the highest ranked universities in the country. That's a great story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I like that advice too. Like, make sure you're pursuing, right, the right specialty master's degree, because there's a lot of them out there. I mean, there's a lot.
Right. That's true. Because I mean, it's such a astronomically huge risk, because yeah, you do forego that year of income, but also you go into further debt for the program. Now, if you think about it, if you do like the work and you're good at it, your career trajectory is going to be much higher, and you're going to get a return on that investment long term. And it's going to be a huge return. But if you go through, like, let's say you wanted to be a doctor and then you realize you hate hospitals. I mean, you went through, I don't know how many years, and then you're at a dead end. That's a tough spot. I don't want to see you guys in there.
No. So you should talk to people. Talk to people you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then listen to your gut too a little bit on some of these things. I mean, if you've got $100,000 laying around that your grandfather gave you, then why not spend it on education? But it doesn't happen that much these days.
That's true. So, all right, the next student submitted a question. So, Christina, I think you had a question related to your resume and also soft skills.
Right. So my question is, how much should you emphasize soft skills versus emphasizing hard skills when you are writing out your resume? And I guess also like those keywords that you mentioned, like how would you mention like the soft skills and balance that with mentioning the right hard skills that will get you through that applicant tracking system?
Sure. I think soft skills are just as important. And we saw that when we did the demo, right? That job scan said, these are the hard skills that are missing from your resume, but these are the soft skills that are missing as well. And so you want to, the magic number is 3, right? So if communication skills are mentioned as a requirement of the job, you need to have communication skills listed at least 3 times on your resume. Same for hard skills, right? So if R is required, coding in R is required, you need to mention R 3 times. And there are ways that you can do it. Can I use your resume again? I'll show you some tricks. So some tricks that I like to use. Where is she? All right, it won't let me. We're going to go back to his names. It won't let me see this PDF. And so if a job description says you need to be highly analytical, you need to have exceptional communication skills, and you need to be very collaborative, right? It's exceptional communication skills. And we would adjust some of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Highly collaborative, right? Zane, would you say you're those things?
I would think so.
Right. And so you got to back them up. But can you back them up in an interview? The answer is yes. Use this headline, right? Right underneath your name. Tell the viewer, a computer or eyes, exactly what they need to know from the very beginning of this document. We're not lying, and we're not really gaming the system. Okay. Another place that you could, I say, this, you don't even have a skills section, Zane. Right. But let's say that, like you had, I'm going to go back to Christina's for a second. She had some technical proficiencies, right? And so she could use, like, she could say technical skills and list them here. And then she could say soft or power skills and list them there. And another way that you will embed them is in the content, right, of your resume. Right? Analytical, collaborative, communication, presentation, attention to detail, results oriented. You see them all, right? All over job descriptions every day. Make sure that you try and incorporate them in all of those places. Does that help? So just as important, and they need to be on your LinkedIn profile too.
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like that could be a whole other podcast episode. Although we did just talk for an hour and 15 minutes to Al Bellamy last week. So I think they're good on LinkedIn right now.
Good.
Well, although I guess you could always improve.
Right.
Okay, so Ben, you had one question related to kind of, what would you say, how to rank order, what is the most important? What was your question?
Yeah. So my question, I mean, I know everything on the resume is important, but when a recruiter is looking at your resume, which sections do you think, like for me, like that I should beef up the most and pay most attention to?
Good question. So remember, most of the time a recruiter isn't going to look at this thing first. But let's say that a recruiter, even a hiring manager, okay, that's who you really want to grab their attention. If myself or John David, if we know a hiring manager and we can physically, well, not physically anymore, walk a piece of paper over and say, hiring manager, I know this person and they're fantastic. You should talk to them. A hiring manager's eyes will actually be on it. And so coming right out of undergrad, your education needs to go first. Okay. And very right after that, because you have, you're going to be competing for jobs in a technical space. Most of you are, you need to have a skills section next. Okay. So one of the things that I would advise Christina on is to move that skills section to the top underneath education. And then I would say analytic projects would be third before professional experience.
Okay.
And then the last is don't leave off leadership. Just don't leave it off. It's really a game changer. If you don't have any leadership experience, it's okay. But for those of you who have played sports, who have been involved on campus, who've done things in your community, those are things that help. So do summer jobs, even if they're not relevant. If you were a lifeguard, a waitress, a cad, I think somebody was a caddy. This tells me, like my daughter laid on the couch all summer. She didn't do anything. Right? Well, she took some classes. Okay. Right. But I would have rather seen her like have a job too, even if it was hostessing at the, cute brunch place up the street. We're layering a story. We're starting to create the story of someone who is very smart, right? Has the toolkit to do the job, right? Mm-hmm. That's why that skills section is so important. And then has the experience, think can do and will do, right? Mm-hmm. The resume says this person can do it. So you're going to get your foot in the door and you're going to get the interview. When you're interviewing, that's when you have to tell this historical, give these examples of how you've done in the past and how you're going to do those things for that company. And so that's my ranking order for undergrads coming out of undergrads or pre-experience programs.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Questions.
So we're running out of class time. So students, you guys are dismissed. You're free to go about your day. Sharron, students, if you guys want to stick around and ask additional questions after we get to the LinkedIn questions, you're free to do that as well. So let's, I'm going to
definitely find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. And tip for the day, I don't know if Al mentioned this or not, I only listened to the first 10 minutes of his stuff. I want to go back and listen to more. But always include a note when you request to connect with someone. Was that a tip that he used?
Yeah, he did.
The likelihood of it getting accepted is much, much higher. So send me a note. Tell me what you liked about the presentation and connect on LinkedIn and watch my profile. I every day I'm reposting and sharing just great jobs.
Awesome. Okay, so let me share my screen and I'm going to pull up that LinkedIn post. So I learned the hard way that LinkedIn doesn't like 2 pictures in a post. It just split it in half. This looks terrible.
It's funky how that came across.
Yeah, it's like, oh, look, there's a building. This is really representative of Sharron.
That's where I work, though.
That's true. Okay, so the first viewer submitted question is coming from Mr. Sigdal. So he's actually at UNCG. So he's been following the podcast for a long time. So shout out to you, Rajesh. So his question is about the 1-page length for entry-level jobs. So I think we've kind of covered this, but maybe you could reiterate kind of your point and your thinking behind it.
Kind of like an industry. You said he's at UNCG?
Yep. So he's getting a graduate degree at UNCG.
So shout out to the director of their career center there, Nicole Hall. She's an excellent colleague of mine and peer, and she would agree with me. We've had lengthy conversations about this. And in the field, it says for every 10 years of experience, you get a page, right?
Oh.
Yep. And so, depending on the job, we're going to talk about CV versus resume in just a second, but let's just think resume for just a second. Resume, 10 years. If you have under 10 years of experience, you get 1 page. No more than 2. Like if you look at mine, it's 2 pages. I have 30 years of experience. If I turned in a 3-page resume, I would be embarrassed of myself. Nicole Hall would shoot me down, right? And so, I just went through it and just updated it, and I just let some things go that weren't relevant. I mean, completely let it go. Like delete. And so, so it's really important to think about it. I've even seen some recent talk around experienced hires like myself trying to get it to 1 page. So we're really getting away from this chronological journaling of everything you've ever done. Mm-hmm. And we're really moving in more to a space of relevant experience that speaks to the job that you're applying to.
Also, I have something that I can chime in. So Rajesh, what you could do is add a link to your Tableau Public portfolio or your GitHub. So then if they are intrigued and they want to know more, you can show your portfolio. And
I've worked with a student recently in grad school, and he has a 1-pager that lists all of his projects that he's worked on, mm-hmm. and he kind of uses it as an annex.
Oh, that's perfect.
Resume, as an annex of his resume. And so we have to get away from every single thing I've ever done, and we also have to get out of their gaps in my work history. There's still some bias around gaps in work history, but applicant tracking systems don't care about them.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I feel like we covered that one. So thank you for that question. So I have no idea how Leila Honolo.
That's a beautiful name.
Mikoti. Yeah. I feel like you guys need to have the thing, like, because I know you on LinkedIn, you can like have it where they know how to pronounce your name and it just like says it
phonetically. Yeah.
So I probably should have seen if these guys had that. So thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to the podcast. My CV has gotten quite long. So let's pause there. I feel like I don't really fully understand the difference between a resume and a CV.
I'm going to send you a document. I've got to go back and find it, or I pull it right up. It may even be a screenshot that I did on my phone. It was a great definition of a CV versus a resume. And so a CV is very important in higher ed. So if you're applying for jobs in faculty positions and even in adjunct, anything in academia, like the position that I hold at Wake Forest is a staff position. So I would not use a CV for a staff position at university, but, med school, law school, you need, like I work with a lot of PAs that are going to PA school. They need to showcase every single clinical thing they've ever done and the hours that they've done. So really that gets into more of a CV. That is more of a journaling of every single thing you've ever done. If you have a lot of publications and you published a lot of work, that's stuff that is very important to whatever job that you may be or school or program that you're applying to. So think CV is this since high school, right? We don't care what you did prior to high school unless you're an Eagle Scout, Golden Star, Girl Scout, And that's it, right?
So would you say that he needs a resume or a CV based on what his current experience?
Research data manager, data analytics professional. Let's go on down.
So this is free. This is actually really interesting. And I think that this is not talked about enough. So he does freelance work on Upwork.
Yep.
It's
good stuff.
So yeah, I think
the resume.
He needs a resume. Okay.
He needs a resume.
Nice. Okay. So
science.
yeah, maybe that's just a semantics issue there. So my CV has gotten long due to the number of certifications I take. I sometimes trim it by removing non-relevant certs for particular posts, but this doesn't help much because I'm always applying for these same, in quotation, jobs. So is it a good idea to have it trimmed or should I keep it as is?
So we also have to think about this resume versus CV as this breathing document. It is always evolving. You're always organically switching things around, adding, taking off, depending on what you're applying to. And so it's not, I did it, check, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Let me use this document to keep applying for jobs. You will go nowhere fast. And so instead, think of like this home-based document that you have that's been fully fleshed out and edited, and another set of eyes has seen it, and it's really, you feel really fantastic about content. And then every time you go to apply for a job or a program or a grant or anything, what's relevant to this job, and how can I showcase and highlight all of the things that I've had experience in so that I can be competitive.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually responded here on my take that you should just have I basically echoed what you just said. So like tailor it based on, but also too, I would also look into, are these certifications, are they expiring? Because I don't think it matters that you took a Tableau certification 5 years ago that's no longer up to date. Because that's the unfortunate thing about being in this space, is that it's kind of the Red Queen theory of I'm running as fast as I can just to stay with the current trends.
Right.
So I mean, and that kind of gets off in the conversation of, I think you mentioned this earlier, of the programs that focus on data science versus business analyst. If you're in the data science space, you for sure need to keep running and learning and up to par and current on whatever new technology is coming out.
Yes.
Awesome. And I think we had one more question. So this is Cassandra Sherrill. So PDF or doc file for uploading resumes? I get conflicting recommendations.
Yeah. All right. So some applicant tracking systems will tell you, right? It says we will take a PDF, a Word, or whatever. Those are the only two that I really know, but there's some more text. I don't know. I say try to always do it in PDF, because it will not jeopardize the integrity of the document. If you've saved it in PDF, nobody can change it. It can't get thrown off by anything. A problem that I have when I'm working even just with clients and even students is that I do everything in Word. Like I want it all. If they send me a resume to review in PDF, I can't mark it up. Right. And so I ask them to send it to me in Word, and they'll send it to me in Word, and I'll mark it up, send it back. And then because our Word versions are different, like I may have like Office 360 and they don't, again, getting out of my comfort zone, right? As far as technology, but that can distort it to where like some lines will go over to the next page. Or if I'm using a font that you don't use, it's going to default to the closest font, and that can distort the thing. And so I say always, if you have the option to use PDF, but if the system will only take a Word document, then of course use Word.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really thorough answer. I didn't even think about formatting issues. Because for some of the branding stuff, we've started using different fonts that are not universal across multiple different I think I tried to open it up in Google Slides and then it just looked terrible.
Google Slides. Ooh, yeah. If somebody shares a document with me on Google, I'm like, you have to send me this thing in Word. Like, I'm just old. Now I'm like showing my age. I'm like, I have to use Word, right? Just to, you track changes and to use the review section in Word, right? And so, and so it's, it can be tricky, especially if you use a Mac versus a laptop. That can distort it too.
Yeah, a lot of students I've noticed love Macs, which I used to be a Mac actually when I was younger, but now that I've gotten more into the analytics space, PCs are just much easier for technology compatibility. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like this was so thorough, and I'm loving these long form conversations where we really get to like suss out the details and the nuance of what's going on.
Awesome. Happy to help. Thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure, John David.